So if you've ever looked at a pond or any natural body of water, a lake, a river, you'll notice that there are multiple components to these systems. There's multiple types and species of animals. There's multiple bacteria. There's multiple plants that you see. Is a diversity of things that make up this ecosystem. And if you study how it works, they all pretty much depend on one another in order to function. If you take one out, you take the fish out of the equation or the aquatic animal out of the equation, then you don't have plants and you don't have bacteria. If you take the bacteria out, then you won't have plants or you won't have fish. So they're all working in this kind of symbiotic relationship, and they are all interdependent upon one another. So aquaponics is just a reflection of this natural process that we see all around us. It's the same exact concept. The concept comes from observing nature. So it's the same thing. You have a freshwater species, usually in the form of a fish. That's what's primarily used in aquaponics, but there's other things that can be used. Now, when the fish breathes, when it respires, and also when it eats and it excretes waste, it begins to produce a nitrogen compound in the form of ammonia, which becomes toxic when it's in concentrations over a certain limit, over a certain amount, and it becomes toxic to the fish. And if the fish are left in this environment for a prolonged amount of time, then eventually they're going to die. They're going to croak. So this is where the bacteria come in. Once this ammonia is present through the breathing and the solid waste that the fish produce, there's the bacteria that develop in the presence of this ammonia, and they begin to use this inorganic compound as a source of energy to sustain themselves. You have the fish that produce the waste, then you have bacteria that come and you can use that waste and use the toxic waste, and they can convert that waste into a usable form of nitrogen for the plants. So this is how this ecosystem works. And then you can begin to manipulate the ecosystem by feeding more, planting more plants, having a larger biological community inside of your system. There's a lot of things that you can do to manipulate this. In nature, it's pretty much a set standard. But with aquaponics, we can customize it and kind of make it as large and as densely stocked as we want it to. And we can kind of manipulate the boundaries to the extent in which a natural ecosystem would not be able to sustain. Like, there's only a certain amount of fish you can have inside of a natural body of water before the oxygen begins to deplete, before toxic levels begin to increase. You have to have a certain amount of a balance of fish to bacteria to plants in order for a natural ecosystem to sustain. And if any one of those is overstocked, then you will have an imbalance, which depletes the ecosystem. But in an aquaponics system, since there's an outside source controlling the variable, us, which is the humans, we're controlling, and we're able to fluctuate oxygen levels and increase and decrease water concentration. We're able to manipulate a lot of these things that nature doesn't do by itself. It's already set in stone on how many fish and how much oxygen is going to be inside of this specific body of water. So aquaponics just gives us a lot more flexibility to do what nature does, but just to a higher level, if you will.